when I hit.
And I guess Sandag is usually, I think what they want to do is to call the roll. So Linda, do you want to do that for the official record?
Sure will. Councilmember Galvez is absent, I believe.
Present.
Oh, welcome. Thank you. Councilmember Donovan.
Present.
Coronado. Councilmember West, Imperial Beach.
Present.
Good afternoon. Vice Mayor Rios, National City.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Moreno, San Diego. Chair Cox, County of San
Here.
Diego.
Here?
Andy Hanshaw, Bike Coalition. I believe Andy's absent. Commissioner Valderrama, Port of San Diego.
Here.
Mr. Wywoody, public member.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We have actually 7 members, which is great. We'll get right into the first action item. Actually, I think it's the only action item, and that's the approval of the minutes for the meeting of July 15th. Is there a motion for approval?
Galvez.
So
motion
moved.
to approve.
Okay, I think Jill Galvez and Mike Donovan seconded the motion. Any discussion? Seeing no desires on the part of anybody to speak. On that one, I think we can take a voice vote. Anybody,
We'll have to
all those in favor?
do a roll call.
You need to call?
I'll need a roll call. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Galvez,
Aye.
Councilmember Donovan,
Donovan, yes.
Councilmember West,
West, yes.
Vice Mayor Rios.
Aye.
Chair Cox,
Yes?
Commissioner Valderrama,
Yes.
Mr. Wywoody.
Wywoody, yes.
Okay, motion passes. That's unanimous.
Very good. Well, we
Hi,
have,
Linda, I'm on the line. I just wanted you to know.
oh, Andy Henshaw?
Oh,
Yes,
hi, Andy.
yes. Hello.
Did you
And
want to vote on the minutes?
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Andy. We didn't think you were going to make it.
No, I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem. We're not gonna highlight the fact that you were late, but that's okay. We'll
We're
get
just
right
gonna call
into
him Hop Along. We're gonna
Yeah.
call him Hop Along for the rest of the meeting.
I'm cured. Move
Do
on.
we have any public comments under item 3?
Chair, I see no hands raised.
Okay, then we'll get right into the report, starting off with item number 4. This is the Choyas Creek Bikeway status report. And we have Everett Hauser from the city of San Diego to give us an update on that. I know that we also have some people from Groundwork San Diego that are also on the line, and I'm sure they're interested in the report. So we'll get right to it. Do you have any introductory comments, Linda?
Only that for production, this is the second part of the presentation. The first part, yeah, if you could queue up the first item for presentation.
Okay, Everett, you want to take it away?
Great, thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Everett Hauser with the City of San Diego Transportation Stormwater Department, and I'm here to provide an update of where we're at with Choyas Creek to Bayshore Bikeway. Next slide, please. So I think many of you may be familiar with this project. It's a project to connect Southeast San Diego, this park, to the Bayshore Bikeway via some alignments along Choyas Creek. It does have a very long history, and I'm sure we're going to cover some of that today, but you can see the alignment there. It had a lot of community involvement in the genesis of the project, and it got started. And then along the way, as we were going through design, we ran out of funding, we got some grants. And so last year, we received some funding for it back in the budget to finish design. And then we'll get into some of the history. But on the screen right there with this slide is the previous alignment. Next slide. And just for anyone who's not familiar with the project, here's just a couple of examples of what the project intends to complete. Some class 1 bikeways along Choice Creek here. You can see on the left what's out there today, and then the class 1 path that would is proposed. Next slide. Here it is an example of when the alignment comes up to Main Street, and then it would be a 2-way cycle track along Main Street. Next slide. So as I mentioned, you can see the image on the right was from the overall alignment, and what was proposed was to join up with 32nd Street to run into the Bayshore Bikeway along Harbor Boulevard. And then as we were picking back up the design last year, the city was also participating in the Harbor Drive corridor working groups and mentioning that we were going to get this project started up again, and had some discussions with the Navy about some of their concerns about the proposed configuration. You can see down there where one of the exit through lanes northbound on 32nd Street was going to become the 2-way cycle track. So after many discussions with them, we decided we could put a pause on finishing up the design in that way and explore some other options. So we've done some work on that, and I'm going to share that with you today. We've also reached out with the council offices and generally have their support. But next slide, please. But it does present itself as an opportunity to get additional public input through the city's Barrio Logan community plan update that is just getting underway. So this was a figure from the previously draft Barrio Logan community plan that went through its history. Next slide, please. And what we just transitioned to was the now proposed alignment for the Choice Creek to Bayshore Bikeway. So we would retain the elements of the class 1 along Choice Creek under I-5, still join up to Rigel Street, still join out to Main Street, and that's now colored the purple where it's the 2-way cycle track. But instead of coming down 32nd Street, which is a truck route and entrance to the base, we could continue along Main Street up to Sampson Street, and that's where we are proposing to join up with Bayshore Bikeway. Next slide. So again, many of the elements that have been worked out and engineered to about the, I believe, 90% design would be retained. Next slide. Such as the class 1 along the creek, such as this intersection with Main Street. And next slide, please. This is just a bit of a summary of the road configurations that would need to occur to accommodate this change. Next slide. And just one more image looking a bit further west on Main Street about what could be envisioned in terms of the continuation of the 2-way cycle track. So an image of existing on the left and sample cross section on the right. Next slide. And so again, kind of to bring it all back together, here's an image overlaid with the map and the images of the cross sections about the proposed realignment of a portion of the Choice Creek to Bayshore Bikeway to achieve the goals of connecting the park to the bikeway and increasing our active transportation network of separated bikeways. So as I mentioned earlier, we have, this is kind of early for the sneak preview, but we're going to bring this to the community planning group as part of the community plan update process that just got underway this week. And I believe with that, that's where we're at today. And so again, our dedicated funding right now is to finish design, and then we'll still need to identify future funding for construction.
What do we think it's going to cost to finish the design?
We've got about $750,000 for that design to complete, and previous estimates of the cost for construction were in the $7 million range, $6 to $7 million range.
Do we have the 750,000 to complete the design?
Yes, that is budgeted.
And how long do we think it's going to take to get that work done?
Well, it depends on how quickly we can complete the public outreach, but then probably about another year.
Okay. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? I know we have some public members that want to speak, but let me ask the committee members first if they have any questions or comments they want to make. Mark?
Yeah, please. Thanks, Supervisor Cox. A couple questions. One, if you could go back to the map slide, please. So that one, perfect. Could you explain the part, the path that goes in the purple there, when it goes past where the feeders are on 15? How is that? Could you kind of draw me a visual diagram of what that's going to look like? Is that going underneath there, or what's the plan there?
Yeah, so as it comes out from Rigel Street and goes past 15, those are all surface level facilities. 15 has an off ramp that comes right down to Main Street and an on ramp.
Yeah, I have to admit, as a cyclist and a driver that used to go onto that base all the time, that is a really, really busy intersection that I am very concerned that it is going to be difficult for cyclists and vehicles. When you proposed this to most of the planning committees, did they mention any concerns about that as well? Your previous meetings, you said?
I'm not aware of any specific history about those concerns. As it sounds like you're very familiar with the configuration, the ramps come off and they're more on the north side, whereas the proposed bikeway is going to be on the south side. So all those, it wouldn't cross any of those turning movements across the ramp.
Okay, that's a little better. Thank you very much. I just know that the amount of vehicle traffic during rush hour times is extremely high in those numbers, and it is. I don't think I'm not sure there's anything we can do, but I want to make sure that we are looking at all ways to promote that we are separating those traffic out as much as possible, because it is. Vehicles think that they are in complete control in that area. So I think that that's something that we need to be aware of. And I'll be very interested to see, as the public brings information on this, that when you bring this back to us, because the plan is to bring this back after you get the public comments, right?
Yes, we can bring it back.
Yeah. So I think that we're going to need to see that, because I want to make sure that we're balancing all the needs of the making sure that cyclists are protected in that area, because that is not, we don't want to build a beautiful Choyas Creek pathway and then have it dump out into one of the most busy intersections in San Diego. And so I really want to, and if we're going to do this to where it's really helping build our alternative transportation, we need to make sure that it's very friendly as well. So I'll be interested to see, once you get the public input, that when you bring it back to us, because that's a concern of mine. I think that's all cyclists will be concerned of that.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions from members of the working group?
Chair, could I,
Sure,
Dookie here?
Dookie, go ahead.
Yeah, is the 700,000 that we're talking about spending for the design, is it all on the purple portion of this diagram, or the 700,000 is for what section, or is it more than just the purple?
It was for the entire alignment.
Okay,
The entire alignment still needs to complete the design.
got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And we still have the support of the Navy on going on one side or the other of the where the Choyas Creek is?
Yeah, so we're in contact with Dave Zajac of the base, and we have some identified concerns for their gates along Main Street, but then we can work those through as it's just a crossing rather than repurposing of lanes.
Chair Cox, Dave does have his hand raised. If you'd like to call on him now, Dave Zajac with the Navy.
I can't see Dave's hand, but let's call on him.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Committee? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, and as we all know, this corridor, this area is it's a challenge, right? It's very busy, and we do have to manage all modes of transportation, peds, trucks, bikes, cars. At the notes that Councilmember or basically that were just mentioned, I just had a quick list of concerns regarding that route, and really that intersection or that underpass SR15 and the next intersection at Main Street and 32nd are a concern because we do have recycling vehicles that come in and have to turn into that recycling yard there at the corner of 32nd and Main. So that is a safety concern. We will have to really dig in deep and look at that area. And then we also have as Everett mentioned, and we've been in dialogue, we do have our Main Street gate that we opened because we closed the 28th Street and Harbor Drive gate to help with the congestion and to support MTS, et cetera, and that we will have to manage as we move through this. But it is a concern, and I just want to highlight that those intersections of Main and 32nd, the underpass of SR15 and 28th Street, and the Main Street gate of our Brooklyn Heights are areas of concern that we need to dive into. And just to point out, the previous environmental impact listed that there was less than significant impact for transportation. When that was done in 2013, we did not have the growth that we have now. So I would recommend that we do, with this design, do a reassessment along that area just to make sure that we keep the cyclists safe. Over.
You know, one of the things I just heard on the radio the other day, and maybe Dookie can respond to this, is that the Port District's coming up with a plan to try to get truck traffic out of Barrio Logan and get truck traffic as quickly as possible onto Harbor Drive. Would that have any ramifications for this, Dookie?
We're looking at that, but I think we're a long ways off from that, and it's strictly in the preliminary stages. But we are looking at trying to get the truck traffic off Main Street and to have it better organized. But it's still a long ways off before we'll get to that point. So, but it is something we're looking at.
Okay, well, unfortunately, the way things have usually worked on this project may be a long ways off too, so they might come together. But I'm hopeful it can move forward in a much quicker time frame where we can get the design work done in a year and have a good plan ready to go. Hopefully it'll be competitive for grant funding. Somebody else has raised a question or a comment?
Yeah,
Mark?
Supervisor Cox, I have a couple. I wanted to ask Dave a quick question, if you don't mind. Hey, Dave, do you know that as we're moving forward and removing that bridge on the main gate there, I'm wondering if it might be better, and I'm asking your opinion more than anything right now, is if we just continued straight down here's my question. I'm sorry. I'm trying to formulate this. Was removal of the pedestrian bridge at the main gate at 32nd Street taken into account when this route was designed?
I don't believe so, but I don't believe so. However, there is some thought as far as we go through and we look at the design, maybe look at some other options that might be able to ensure we protect cyclists. Just like Chair Cox said, there might be some opportunities with additional funding coming down that we could explore different options that would meet the goals of basically connecting the Choice Creek Bikeway to the Bayshore Bikeway. Over.
Okay. Other questions from committee members? Okay, I don't see any other hands. I know
Hey,
Leslie.
wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Cox. I was on mute and I was talking to myself. Sorry about that. But I was wondering if we can, I think that the Bayshore Bikeway working group that we have here is a great example of how collaboration works. And I think that this might be something as we embrace this Choyas Creek to the Bayshore Bikeway, that they take those community members and put something in place that really works to create something similar to this, almost like another smaller working group. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that it needs to be done overnight, but I think it's a great idea to take those Choyas Creek people, the people in Barrio Logan, and really move those as a small committee to work on this, because that's an area that's really going to be challenging.
Yeah, and I think, we already have some grant funding that's available through, I think, the last bond act, which is really focusing on disadvantaged communities. And I would think that this project, if it was shovel ready, we had the design and then environmental all done, I would think it would compete very well for not only funding from that pot, but maybe from some of the other transportation funding pots that are out there. I do know that we have Leslie Reynolds and Vicky Estrada from Groundworks. Do either one of you want to add any comments? Vicky?
Not yet. We're about to give our presentation, and it might be best to wait until after that.
Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Do we have? I would imagine your presentation is part of this item. Is that right, Leslie?
Yes.
Or excuse me, Linda.
Yes, that's right. Kendall, if you could cue up that, I just called it a 4B presentation. That'd be
Okay.
great.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and proceed into that? Vicky, go ahead, and Leslie.
Okay, 4B. Leslie, do you want to go real quick, or do you want me to just go ahead and go? Okay. Well, I don't see, I'll go ahead and go then. Let's see, you can finish up at the end. All right, so I'll be very quick. I promised that Linda I'd do this in less than 10 minutes. So my name is Vicky Estrada. I'm a landscape architect. I'm a board member of Groundwork and also San Diego Canyon Lands. And today I'm representing the Choice Creek Coalition, which represents a whole bunch of really good organizations that are either very concerned about what happens within the watershed or within the watershed, a lot of community planning groups. So Mark's idea of putting together some sort of a community group, we would love to be part of that. We have some great community members. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so just to kind of remind you, I'm going to step back a little bit and look at the big picture. This is the Choice Creek watershed, and they all come together down here on 32nd Street. It's kind of amazing. It encompasses almost all of Lemon Grove and a good portion of La Mesa, including the village part of La Mesa. People don't realize that that is part of the watershed, and you can see the other communities within the city of San Diego. Next slide, please. So this simplifies things just a wee bit. You can see the freeways in red and the major portions of Choias Creek in blue, but you can begin to see the opportunities that this creek really presents to begin to link the neighborhoods together. In the past, the creek has been used as a dumping yard, and people really didn't take advantage of the creek. And unfortunately, a lot of the areas were, put in concrete, which, we're little by little in some areas we're trying to revegetate those. But next slide, please. So one of the ideas we have to begin to really realize those linkages is Groundwork San Diego would like to do and we've been talking to the city about this, the San Diego, the Parks Master Plan people as well, about doing a Choias Creek watershed regional park, which is not like Mission Trails where you have a little square or Balboa Park. This is kind of a hybrid park, which encompasses some street right-of-ways, some existing parks, some new parks, and some trails within even the Caltrans right-of-way, as you will see an example of in a minute. Next slide. So can you imagine, the green asters are parks, and then, culminating down in the lower part of the image, you see the trail that we've been talking about, the blue, but we'd like to continue that with the green trails and yellow trails and some other subsequent trails linking the green asters. Next slide, please. So this slide has already been shown. So let's go ahead and go to the the next slide. This is pretty much the same alignment. We did look at, I was part of that team that looked at this with SOMAS. And we did have several community meetings and design charrettes, so we did have quite a bit of community input. But as you can see, just to answer, I think it was Mark's question or somebody's question, where it says SR15, what we looked at is having the trail cross Rigel and Main Street. That's where it crosses. So once it crosses the street there, then it continues northwestward, and it goes underneath I-15. It doesn't cross the north side where you have the pork chop and all the on-ramps onto I-15. So that would make things a little bit easier. And Alternative A, you've already seen the simulation. Go ahead, next slide, please. This is the existing view. And so, well, Vicki, how can you get a trail in here? So I did a simulation, next slide, showing that potentially we can get a trail in here. We have talked to Caltrans about this, this potential improvement, and it is something that is very feasible. It would cost a wee bit, but certainly doable. Next slide. So one of the things that concerned us, because the people of the Troyes Creek watershed, you know, kind of have been looked down upon and over the years, and they don't get a lot of benefits. It's very park poor. And then when we talked to them about the potential to connect with the Bayshore Bikeway, they were very excited about it. And you can see in green, and when the city came back and said, you know what, and I'm not putting down, I understand the issues and concerns that both the Navy and city have with that 32nd Street connection, but I would not like to throw it out just yet. Next slide. What we would like to do is actually consider three, not just one or the other, but all three connections. So you can see the green from the right coming in from Petview Park. And then option 3 is something that we could still think. And I've been looking at ways to actually make that work. I think we can do that. But in addition, continue the design study on the Main Street. But as you'll see in a minute, I want to do something, you know, I've been talking to both Environmental Health Coalition and Caltrans about the purple in number 1. Next slide. And so this is the Boston Avenue Linear Park. This is number 1. You can see we feel there's a really good need and for a potential connection to continue up along the creek, along the junkyards. I have talked to Caltrans about that, and they are willing to work with us and continue along on the southern boundary of I-5. And much like Tweed Street Park downtown, which we were lucky enough to design, there's leftover Caltrans right-of-way, which really doesn't do anybody any good. And when we worked on the community plan update several years ago, one of the ideas was, let's do a Boston Avenue linear park. And within that park would be a class, you know, a class 1 bikeway that would actually go within the park. So next slide. And you can see a plan of what that park might look like. Next slide. And much like Everett said, this is Main Street. Next slide. You know, existing, it's not, it's a pretty brutal street, but as Everett showed, next slide, there are, we see the potential for a cycle track on the southern side of that, which would actually begin to work pretty well. Next slide. So let me summarize, and Linda, going to be well under 10 minutes. So the 3 things that the community needs and really desires, and it would be unfair to not have these 3 connections, is that connection that the original study looked at. Not give up on that, understanding that there are some major issues. We get that, but we think we can work them out. Next slide. We also need this, as was Everett talked about, on Main Street. And we like to include, next slide, the Boston Avenue Linear Park connection, as we've talked about. So hopefully that gives you a little bit better idea of what the Troyes Creek Coalition would like to see. Next slide is the last slide. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, great presentation. Linda, is it possible for us to go ahead and get the graphics here sent out to everybody so that we have those to take a look at in a little more detail?
Yes, definitely. And we have one public speaker wishing to speak.
Okay, let's go ahead and hear from them now.
Okay, and Nicole Burgess.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Greg Cox, Chair, and Mark West for your comments. Appreciative of Vicki and Groundworks for really showcasing this regional asset for our region. And you know, and Everett, thank you for your presentation. I wanted to just verify, are those bike lanes on 32nd Street proposed? And I guess I can come back to that. So that would be a connection, a very valuable connection. And as Mark mentioned, you know, he's going to the base. So when we look at this regional asset to come down Choyas Creek and know that we can get City Heights residents all the way from Lemon Grove and La Mesa down this pathway, how do we get them into the base? That's where they actually want to go. And then there's some that are going to want to go north, of course, up Main Street into City of San Diego. And then just another second one on the port plan, the harbor corridor study. I believe it's Richard from that. Port plan that I looked at does not actually show any regional connections to the Choyas Creek. And so it is very concerning if this was, if the alignment was changed partially due because of the harbor corridor study. I understand some of the constraints at 32nd Street, but I just want to make sure as a cyclist to go to the direct route that we still have a safe facility there.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Appreciate your comments. Any other comments? I really liked the suggestion of Mark, and maybe for our next meeting, we can put an item on the agenda to create a subcommittee that would be focusing on this corridor and the options. It probably, since it was Mark's idea, probably be good to get Mark on there, and because it will probably involve the port. If Dookie was agreeable, maybe we get him on there, and if there's, you know, one or two other committee members that would like to be on there, and then we'll work with Vicki and Leslie to get some folks from groundwork. Probably it would be good to get somebody from Caltrans and somebody from the Navy. So if it's agreeable, maybe we can put that on the next agenda, and I'll work with Linda and a couple of you to try to get a list of people that could be on that subcommittee to kind of work with Everett and the city of San Diego on this. Does that sound okay?
Got my support.
Anybody have any objection to that?
Nope.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Leslie, did you want to say anything? You've been uncharacteristically quiet.
Pretty quiet, but all the good work's getting done. No, just to thank everybody, and just as both Everett and Vicki said, this project had lots of community excitement over 3 or 4 years, and so we're very interested in retaining that original alignment. We want to think about it really as a linear park. Our residents have very little access to these beautiful creek views, unlike other watersheds. So we're hoping we can, sort of take a perspective that's all encompassing in terms of what our communities need and want and deserve. And I just want to remind everybody, our community members used to be able to river raft from Lemon Grove and La Mesa all the way to the bay on inner tubes and rafts. And so anything that we could give them that would be any semblance of something beautiful and aesthetically pleasing down to the bay would just be a real boon for them. So thank you, everybody. And the idea of including them in future conversations is just wonderful. Thank you.
So, for Greg, a question on that subcommittee that they're going to talk about at the next meeting. How do who puts that together? Is Mark in charge of that? Are you in charge of that? And we certainly would love to be part of that. So I don't know. I just don't want to sit back and be silent. Would you contact us when that's time?
Yeah, I think I'll work with Mark, and we can, we want to make sure if we're going to have a subcommittee, it needs to be pretty broad based. Maybe Everett can give us some help with identifying some people from the Barrio Logan community, because I would imagine they'd have some interest in that. But we'll come up with a suggested charge and maybe some suggested members.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, anything else on this?
We have one additional public speaker.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. This is Captain Mark Nisodomi. I'm the commanding officer, Naval Base San Diego. Just appreciate the opportunity to listen in on this conversation. I know Dave Zajac has been engaged with this for a long time. A few comments. I do echo some of the comments from Councilmember West. The 32nd Street, Harbor Drive intersections, I-15, very busy. We routinely respond to quite a few accidents over there. A matter of fact, I don't even drive. I have some licensed electric, think golf cart type vehicles without airbags. I don't even drive those from the wet side to the dry side. I need something with some airbags. And I'm saying that, and I bike. So as recreational. I'm very interested when I heard the other option on Boston Street. I had not heard that one. I know Barrio Logan Planning Group will be very interested in that one, and also Maine. I had not heard either of those in previous discussions with that group, but we do want to stay engaged with you on this one and see if we can be part of the solution over here. Thank you.
So, Captain, does that mean that you'd be willing to serve on the subcommittee?
Well, absolutely. Naval Base San Diego will be a part of that. Very much so, because even with the Main Street option, I think we do need to look at that. It's become a lot of the original Navy input goes back to 2013. And I will tell you, I was here on the base from 12 to 15. I returned in 19, and I came back to a much busier community, a much busier base. We haven't mentioned the 3 shipyards, a lot of activity. So absolutely, we'd like to be part of that.
Great. Captain, we appreciate your input and look forward to your participation. Of course, if we're successful with this section of the Choice Creek Bikeway and the Barrio Logan section of the Bikeway, we'll probably have most of those people working at the shipbuilding facilities riding bicycles to work and not cars. So, and maybe
Well,
a lot of the Navy too.
That would be great.
Okay, anything else in this item? Okay,
No,
we'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, which is the Bayshore Bikeway Segment 5, which is in National City. And Luca's going to give us an update on that.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luca Zappiello from the Engineering and Public Works Department at the City of National City. And today I'm going to provide an update on the Bayshore Bikeway Segment 5 project. Next slide, please. This slide provides an overview of all Bayshore Bikeway projects that we're going to have a total of 24 miles of protected bicycle facilities. Segment 5 is the National City Bayshore Bikeway project, which will be the key segment for the San Diego's regional bike network, and will provide the National City residents access to downtown San Diego and Chula Vista through protected bicycle facilities. Next slide, please. Segment 5 is located on the west side of the City of National City, west of the Interstate I-5, and it will provide 1.5 miles of protected bicycle facilities, Class 1 and Class 4, along Harbor Drive, McKinley Avenue, Bay Marina Drive, and Marina Way. Next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, we are planning to install a Class 1 facility that is going to be separated from the vehicular traffic, and a Class 4 facility that is going to separate the vehicle traffic lane from the bike facility through the installation of a 3-foot raised concrete curb or bollards. Thank you. At this time, we are working and coordinating with multiple agencies on this project, including the Port of San Diego, Caltrans, SCGNA, MTS, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, County of San Diego, LEA, and BNSF. We also perform stakeholder outreach to all of the other agencies included on this slide. Last year, the City of National City entered into an agreement with the Port of San Diego for the port to fund environmental clearance, preliminary and final design of Segment 5 for a total of $900,000, which is currently in progress. Furthermore, construction is going to be funded by Caltrans for a total of $5,421,000 of federal ATP and a local match of $70,000. Next slide, please. Thank you. The project is still in a preliminary engineering design phase. The city and the design consultant, Chen Ryan, are working on the NEPA clearance and includes 7 different studies. And also we are working on completing the final alignment of this segment. We expected to complete the NEPA phase and final alignment of the Bayshore facility by early next year. In terms of project schedule, we have plan specification, estimate, and right-of-way completion by January 2022. Expected start date of construction activities May 2022, and construction completion November 2023. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Hey, any questions for Luca?
Greg, I have a question.
Yeah, Dookie.
Yeah, real quick question on the construction. I know the port put up the 900,000 for the study that's going on right now, and then the actual construction funding that you're talking about. You said there was a 70,000 match in there. And I know construction is a little bit ways off, but has that match been identified yet or not?
Yes, we received funding by Caltrans for a total of over $5 million for the construction.
And the match was being made by who?
Yeah, the match is by the city.
Okay, that's what I didn't hear. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, any other questions?
I just want to say one thing, Greg, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just think that this part of the, I applaud National City and the work that they're doing on this, because this is a part of the Bikeway that is this will really enhance the whole ride around the bay. So Vice Mayor Rios and your entire team, this is great work. So good job.
Absolutely. Great job, Mona and National City. You know, just looking at that, the first graphic you had, the Bayshore Bikeway, I don't want to be picky, but I think there's a section from J Street down to Palomar Street that's in yellow that should be in red.
Okay.
You know, minor point, but you know, we fought so hard for every square inch of this bike path. I don't want any to be overlooked. If there's no further questions on.
Chairman Cox.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Chairman Cox. Oh, Chairman
ahead,
Cox.
Mona.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank Mark for his comments and to say that, you know, when I first started on the Bayshore Bikeway, there was a discussion, there was funding ready for us to go. And then we had, you know, to go through some more discussion on this. So I'm really happy to say that I'm back here on the Bayshore Bikeway and that this is moving forward.
Thank you. We're delighted too. On both of those points, that you're back here on the committee and that it's moving forward.
And
Yeah,
this is Linda. There are no public speakers for this item.
I'm glad you interrupted me on that because I tend to forget about that. We'll move on then to item number 6, which is the Barrio Logan segment status report. And Chris is going to give us a report on that.
I'm sorry, Chair, this is Sandag Production. I see David Z has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, David. Is David there?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just had to unmute my my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. No, I would just like to recognize the efforts of the Navy with National City. And I know that we're working with them to create active transportation links to both our wet and our dry side of the base. And I just wanted to share that there might be something we bring to the December meeting once we confirm it. I've got a follow-on meeting with the Director of Public Works next week to talk about a connection that bridges the gap between National City and the city of San Diego next to our Yama Street gate. There was a funding shortfall with one of the grants, and there needs to be a little bit more coordination, I think, from the city of San Diego to make that final connection between downtown National City as they develop and our Yalma Street gate. Over.
Great. Thanks, David. Appreciate that. I see that Vicki Touchstone is I think on the call. Vicki, do you have anything to add? I know that a portion of this is going to go through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service property or getting close to it. And I know that you guys have been working very, very cooperative and collaborative with National City on that. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, just that we continue to work with them and we appreciate being involved in the discussions. So that's all.
Great. Thanks, Vicki. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the Barrio Logan segment. Chris?
Right. Greetings, honorable working group members and esteemed citizens, colleagues, and partners. Thank you very much, Chris Carteret, the Sandag project manager for the Barrio Logan segment of Bayshore Bikeway. And I just want to say that it's always been kind of mysterious to me what the nomenclature is of the different segments. And so I've always appreciated that this one was called Barrio Logan, but I recently learned that it was segment 2. And it's always been kind of a cryptic puzzle, like 8B, 4 and 5, 2. Anyways, it's good to know where you are. And well, I've got about 17 pages of notes that I'm going to read from here. And so what do I have, another hour? Okay, just kidding. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to touch on kind of the key aspects of the job. Design, right-of-way, funding, and schedule. We're working away at the final design right now. We have a substantially designed project. We're really just putting the finishing touches on things as we work through technical issues, signalization, stormwater drainage, kind of means and methods for landscaping and that sort of thing. A number of our partners are involved in working with us on these matters. It's everything from SDG&E, the City of San Diego, the Port, BNSF, MTS, and ultimately we'll also be getting a GO 88 for changing a couple of the railroad grade crossings. And so we're also working with our colleagues at the Public Utilities Commission.
Don't forget the Navy.
I'm so sorry, Dave, of course. And I have you down. It just, yeah. Just not, I had just not yet. I think you're on like the 8th page of my notes, as I've got like about 4 pages dedicated to the Navy. So I got to get there. One of our biggest challenges is working out the right of way. Not so much because it's, it appears to be very straightforward, but it turns out that the nuances of getting this stuff squared away is like super difficult. And so we're just kind of trying to get these bows tied on these packages. And the thread is so fine and our fingers are so clumsy that it's just really, really hard, but we'll get there. Okay, next slide, please. And just to kind of highlight, we've got these moderately substantial right-of-way areas that we're working with where there are little bits and pieces within, and it comes out to a lot of parts. And so it's big team effort. And then speaking of the Navy, if you look at the lower right-hand corner of the map there's a little sliver of red tinted property. If we could go to the next slide, please. And that's where we're going to be working to get a second right turn lane in that's going to assist with relieving congestion on Harbor Drive as it approaches Gate 6 of Naval Base San Diego. And so we've got a team effort there with the Navy and San Diego Gas and Electric to relocate the overhead utility pole that's shown there in that photograph. And it'll go to the southwest approximately, 15 or 20 feet. And so that's actually a really big coordination issue, and it's got some kind of cascading effects in terms of how it affects power lines on either side. And so, you know, that pole get moved, the footing for the non-accessible pedestrian bridge will go away. We'll have crosswalks and there'll be that second right turn lane there. So that's a big effort that's kind of just opened up and that we're moving forward with at this time. Next slide, please. So just a quick update on funding. You know, the project is substantially funded by our Transnet funding source, but we also have state ATP grant funding, which includes federal money. And so that's, you know, what we've got essentially encumbered for the project to construct it, but we also had the opportunity to apply for a Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program grant and teamed up with the Navy to put that together and got great support from Navy leadership and staff in putting that together and providing a letter of support. Unfortunately, we were not invited to apply. But we did learn during the debrief that the application was excellent and was definitely on the route to being accepted. But it ended up being categorized as a resiliency project versus quality of life. And all of the projects that were funded were in the quality of life tier, which was tier 1. And so we were in tier 2. And of tier 2, we were among the top projects. I believe that including match, there was over $1 billion worth of applications, and it was a relatively small pot of money. So I feel like we were pretty successful in that we, you know, learned what this program is going to look like, and we were given good hope for success with future cycle opportunities on that. Next slide, please. And so just a quick schedule update. We're still striving to get the project out to bid ASAP. And right now we feel like February next year is a milestone that we can hit. And then after that, it takes about 5 or 6 months to actually get to construction after having awarded a contract. And then we think it'll take about 2 years to build and hope that by 2023, it'll be open to the public. So yeah, I kind of breezed through my sheaf of papers here, and I'm prepared to take any questions or hear any comments that we may have from the working group or members of the public, partners, etc.
Great, thanks, Chris, for that report. You know, the only thing I would add to your comments is that in addition to having just a plethora of different public agencies and utilities and railroads and state, federal agencies to work with. I mean, if these projects were easy, they would have been done a long time ago. And I guess I just harken back to the point that the original planning for the Bayshore Bikeway, I think started in 1978. That was 42 years ago. So I do think we see light at the end of the tunnel. And it's not a train coming at us. It's going to be the completion of the Bayshore Bikeway all around the bay. So thank you for that report. And let me ask if there's any questions from members of the committee.
I have a question, Greg.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Just going back, I'm a little confused on your, when we got voted at resiliency versus quality of life. Is I don't understand that at all. I'm going to be honest with you. So are you under the impression that if we take this back, I mean, I know how a lot of times these Defense Department grants are, you know, they stack them up and you don't get it this year, but you'll get it next year. Are we going to be able to be a quality of life grant in the future on this? I mean, it seems like this project should be, it's all about quality of life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of nuances to that. And I think also part of it is looking at the nature of the applications that were received, and a tremendous number of them were for school upgrades, recreation centers, daycare, things that were a lot easier to tie to quality of life for military personnel and families. While we certainly all agree that this is a quality of life thing in that both it ties into a significant bikeway and also has a lot of operational characteristics that support safety and a more efficient movement in and out of base and points beyond. Yeah, it was a decision that the reviewers made. We did request quality of life, but the impression that I got was that they would be specifically looking to fund resiliency projects in future rounds, that it won't always be a quality of life emphasis. I have a feeling that Dave may have some additional insight if he would care to add to what I said in toward answering your questions.
Please, Dave, help me out here.
Not to put you on the spot, Dave.
Is my mic live?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I wasn't muted at the last one. All right. So I will, I'll be responsible going forward. So Councilmember West, yeah, you are, and actually, let me back up. Chris, you did a great job explaining it in DoD speak. And I want to also just do a shout out and a note of appreciation to Audrey, who helped us write the grant, or actually helped Sandag write the grant. She did a tremendous job, and we were applauded with the grant content. However, the quality of life, it was all about how the Department of Defense Office of Economic Adjustment defined it. And to put it matter of fact is, they were focused on, with this pilot project, improving family quality of life in remote military bases. One example is $10 million was set aside or funded in Fort Drum in Watertown, New York. I've been there. It needed it. It's remote. And specifically, these are off-base requests from the community to improve not only military family quality of life, but also on a minor impact other communities or the neighboring community quality of life. So if you look at it in that perspective, that's basically, that was their definition. And then to speak to future grant opportunities, and then to highlight what Chair Cox mentioned, in 1978, the Bayshore Bikeway started. This DoD OEA capacity at 50 million focused on quality of life is just the beginning. Hopefully it continues, and we can be competitive as going forward, because we're hoping that Congress will appropriate more money to these programs. And then our categorization of resiliency was because of it was deemed resiliency by the DoD. And that's just the way it is. But hopefully I've added a little context, but I do want to just show my appreciation to Audrey for all of her hard work with that grant submission. And of course, Chris as well. Thank you for your partnership. Over.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David. Did Dookie Valderrama, I don't know whether he's still on or not. I thought I saw him raise his hand, but I don't know whether he's on anymore or not. I don't think
I think he had to go to a port meeting there.
Okay.
Chair Cox.
All right. Any other comments? I would just share with you that in the last couple of weeks, I had a chance to talk to the Navy Mayor, Admiral Bolivar, who wrote a very nice letter to SDG&E asking for their cooperation and support in moving the at least the one pole. It may involve some other utility poles. I did the same thing, and I've had some discussions with some people at SDG&E, and I think they're very seriously considering, cooperating and perhaps picking up the cost of that relocation, because I know that was a pretty big ticket item. I think it was about $1 million just to relocate that one pole. So if that happens, that would certainly, I think, move this project forward in a much more expeditious manner. Anything else on this item?
And
If
Chair,
not,
no public speakers.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for reminding me.
Yes.
We'll move on then to segment 8B, which is the one down there by the salt works. And Omar's going to give us a presentation on that.
Thank you, Chair Cox. Good afternoon. My name is Omar Atay. I'm Sandag's project manager for Bayshore Bikeway segment 8B. As Chair Cox mentioned, that's a segment just south of Palomar Street, or south of Palomar Street, sorry, along Bay Boulevard, right by Saltworks. We've reported on this before, and we're continuing to negotiate right away with the property owner to obtain easements that are really necessary to construct the project. Those negotiations are still ongoing. The owner has made some requests, and those involve coordination with the city of San Diego, because the city of San Diego will be the ultimate operator of the facility. So we met with the city, provided them the draft agreement, and the city took some time and actually reviewed the draft agreement and provided comments just this week. And we returned those comments to the property owners, and we're just kind of waiting on them to see how those are received. So it's a brief report. We're still trying to get that right away, Chair Cox, but we're working hard at it. That's all I have to report at this time, but I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Are there any questions? I would just share with you that, we've been working on this one segment, which is a comparatively small section, for about the last 3 years, I think. And we've kind of gone back and forth between whether we, be able to get a dedication of the right of way from the private property owner, or there was a dispute in regards to who owned that property, whether it was MTS or the private property owner. We looked at a revocable license to use, and now we've kind of come full circle back to perhaps having that right of way deeded over by the property owner. Though I might add, Mr. Gabe has been extremely cooperative in accommodating us at the south end of the Bayshore Bikeway. He provided a revocable license to use for the segment from 13th Street and Imperial Beach over to Main Street in Chula Vista. So I think we're very close to coming to an agreement between Mr. Gabe, between the city of San Diego, between MTS, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have some good news to kind of wrap that up. Anything else on that segment? Are there any public comments?
No public comments, Chair.
Okay. Then we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is in reference to some Bayshore Bikeway signage improvement projects. And we'll start off with the city of Coronado has a bikeway etiquette signs that they've been working on, and Howard Lee's going to give us a presentation on that.
Hello, this is Howard Lee from City of Coronado. I'm relatively new to Coronado and new to this working group, so I'm happy to be here and happy to have the opportunity to present with you all and have this conversation about the Bayshore Bikeway, a bikeway that we all know and love. Specifically here in Coronado, it's segment 10A and 10B. 10A is the Strand segment and 10B is the Promenade Shoreline, which leads to the Coronado Ferry Landing. So before I go into the slide or the sign concepts, I wanted to give the background or the genesis of why we're having this conversation about etiquette signage along the Strand. So as y'all know, the Strand is a highly used, highly trafficked, and it's a multi-use path. You have a wide range of users on the path, from pedestrians to joggers to scooters to your surveys and your bikes and whatnot. So it's highly used and it's very popular, and it runs along the scenic highway along the Strand. Since COVID in March, we've seen a significant uptick in users along the path. And so when you have more users, there's more incidents between bikes and peds. And I wanted to highlight a couple recent injuries, unfortunately, that happened. One that was on the Strand between two cyclists that was an injury that later became a fatality. That was late May, early June. And then a couple of weeks ago, along the Shoreline Promenade side, there was an injury incident between a teenage cyclist, which hit a small child on the promenade side behind the Marriott, which resulted in a injury to the ear that required surgery at the Children's Hospital. So that's kind of why we're having this presentation today. And overall, we also want to discuss the idea that the path along the strand is narrow and needs to be widened. The path there that we have is well used. So we've applied for grant funding in the past, but was not awarded funding to widen the path. There needs to be a shoulder along the path. And because of that, yeah, that's what we need. I would suggest that maybe we need to look at updating the Bayshore Bikeway plan. As I understand it, the plan itself hasn't been updated since 2006. So maybe perhaps it may be a good time to look at, the current usage of the bikeway and current incidents and injuries, and see if there's an opportunity or a need to widen that path in particular. So that's why we're looking at the signage. So I'll briefly go through the following slides on the sign concepts and what we're discussing with our mobility commission here in the city. Okay, next slide. So we're looking at signage concepts along the shoreline promenade, where we could include some yellow striping with some language that says "look both ways," or some Spanish language for this Spanish language speakers, and also some stenciling along the promenade. Next slide. And so those are the sign concepts for stenciling along the promenade side. And then next slide. We're also looking at different sign locations along the Strand segment. I'm identifying different locations where it may make sense to have signage and also stenciling. In terms of signage, we wanted to, if we're going to have signage, it shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 signs, because there really has been an effort to reduce or to remove visual clutter along the Strand, and we want to continue to keep it clean along the Strand and minimize the amount of signage. So if we do have signage, we want to minimize that and focus on stenciling. Next slide. And here are some more locations, near Lincoln Housing, Lowe's Coronado, the K's entrance, maybe along near the Bayshore Bikeway parking lot, and have some etiquette signage along those at those locations, and also perhaps stenciling, Biddler's Cove, Lowe's, and so on, and shown on this slide. Just different starts and stops along the way on the Strand. Next slide. So here are some sign stenciling examples showing some language: yield to peds, your typical language, bikes keep right, peds keep right, or bikes keep left, peds keep right, warning, warn when you pass, share the path. So these are just examples. And then next slide. So these following slides were shared with us from SANDAG staff that were presented in the past, I think in 2017, just your standard signs for yielding to pedestrians. And next slide. Keeping right. Next slide. Next slide. And pass when you're warning. So the intent is just for overall etiquette and to follow the SANDAG motif. We're looking for signage that could follow what SANDAG does, so it's coordinated along all of the Bayshore bike path. So then whatever we put up there would be coordinated along the rest of the bikeway as well, if that's even possible. Next slide. And another example of a combined message sign if we were to use signs. Next slide. And also the overall idea that it's a shared path with many users, so we need to be looking out for one another when we're on the path. Next slide. We're also looking at the Marin County Share the Path campaign, which has, as I understand it, has been relatively successful in their intent to promote safety and consideration of all the path users on their bikeways up in Marin County. So they use a range of colored iconic signage to warn users and to let them know, be courteous, know the rules, be responsible. And they also have this example of a shear the path colored stenciling. Next slide. So yeah, we're just interested in hearing from the working group and getting feedback, and we'll be moving forward with working with the port on identifying some signage that we could put up along the promenade side, and we'll also be looking to put up signage on the Strand side. But again, we also want to highlight the bigger picture, which is a need to widen the Strand pathway as a whole, and to look at that, and if we need to update the bikeway plan to consider that, maybe that's a next step that we can look at. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Howard. Very good suggestions. Comments from members of the committee. Mark?
Sorry, you just knew I was going to say something, didn't you?
Actually, you're the only one I can see.
Oh, good. Okay, that's it. All right. I just have one thing. Could you go back to your background slide, please? So on your first statement here, Bayshore Bikeway is a high traffic multi-use path. Where did you get that information?
It's anecdotal, it's observational.
Okay.
We have a lot of tourists, a lot of local users, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that you understand the definition of that multi-use path. The Bayshore Bikeway is actually designed to be a Class 1 bikeway. So that has very different, although there are some areas in our community that it is a multi-use path, it is the goal to make it a complete Class 1 bikeway. So I just want to make sure that that's a point that you understand there.
Understood, yes.
So that's all I really have.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cox,
Yeah,
this is
Mike, go ahead. Mike Waywood.
So I was riding it again this morning. I ride it maybe 4 times a week. And at our last meeting, it was reported that bike usage is up like 140% over last year, some very large number. But what was missing was the number of pedestrians, which I would guess, though we don't count them, I would guess is like 300% of what it was last year. And pedestrians are always, always, always surprised when you pass them, because if they're by themselves, they have headsets on or earplugs. If they're with somebody else, they're talking to somebody else and they don't hear you call out. So the concern that I have about how we go forward with this to really make it safer and not just put up signs for the sake of anti-lawyering is to make the pedestrians aware of the fact that there are bicycles on here, and the bicycles go considerably faster than the pedestrians do. And so if we, obviously the right solution is to widen the path and to have the opportunity to have separated traffic. But until we can do that, I think we need to not put the whole onus on the cyclists. We need to really heighten awareness on the part of pedestrians if we're going to affect accident rates.
I agree. Good point.
100% agree.
Supervisor, it's Andy Hanshaw.
Yeah, Andy, go ahead.
I agree with Mike's comments as well, and I think I appreciate the priority to widen the path because it's actually increased in usage so much as well, and it's just always been a busy bikeway. So in the signage that it is a multi-use path, I think is helpful, but so that the pedestrians are aware, some of that signage is going to be helpful. I'm also curious to know if there are particular areas where, and if there's ever been a speed evaluation on some of them, because when it does get crowded, you want to take a look at, maybe the potential, how fast some of the cyclists might be going. But I want to make it clear that it is a multi-use path. But I think widening is a priority.
Right, other comments? Howard, I don't know whether you're looking for some specific direction, but I certainly would encourage Coronado to continue to work with the Sandag staff on the signage and see if we can come back with a proposal maybe at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg,
Yes, Mike Donovan?
could I make a quick comment just to amplify the others' comments? You know, I don't know what the original intent of the path was, but it's definitely being used by pedestrians, by joggers, by, you know, the Navy doing their annual physical fitness tests, all kinds of uses. We're becoming very alarmed about the safety issues along this path. As Howard mentioned, we had a fatality over the summer, very sad. We see these signs as kind of a Band-Aid. And as has already been mentioned, we really would like to see some funding to widen the path. You know, signs, it's not clear if people, you know, see them or if they really fully understand what the signs are telling them. So like I said, we see this as kind of a Band-Aid approach, and we need a long-term strategy to improve the safety along the Strand.
Yeah, well, I think widening certainly is something that needs to be looked at, but I guess, you know, we're also trying to get the bikeway completed around the bay, so we got to kind of balance that. But if we can look to other funding pots or sources to look at expanding that where we can, and we can't do that everywhere, but I think at least in Coronado, that section that was showed at the beginning down by the Coronado City Hall, I think never really did have the, it looks like it's 2 4-foot travel lanes, and it never did have the shoulder, which I think a lot of the areas of the Bayshore Bikeway do have a 2-foot shoulder on either side of it. So that makes a big difference when you have a kind of a narrow corridor to work with.
Yeah, there's definitely challenges there.
Yeah. Other comments?
Chair Cox, we have Dave Zajac wanting to make a comment.
Okay.
Yes, Chair Cox in City of Coronado, and also Councilmember West. We talked about the Department of Defense Office Economic Adjustment Grant. I think when you talk about future funding sources, this might, that span of the Bayshore Bikeway getting widened, I would just say maybe look at that being the future grant as a quality of life enhancement between the city of IB and the city of Coronado, because you do have military families living between those two areas, and it might be categorized this time as quality of life. I just throw that out there. Over.
Good suggestion, David. Thank you. Anything else on this item? If not, we'll move to the next portion of the report, which is dealing with the interpretive signage. And I believe Vicki Touchstone and Andy Ewan are going to give us this report. Andy, I didn't see you before. That's great that you're here.
Good afternoon, Chairman Cox. Before I pass it over to Vicki to give you an update on her efforts on the interpretive signage, I do want to thank you for the funding to provide the work that we're doing to recognize Gordy Shields and the interpretive panel that was damaged soon after the Western Salt segment of the Bayshore Bikeway was installed. Vicki has been coordinating with your office and Gordy's family, as well as Sandag and Stephen Vance on the Gordy Shields sign. So she's really been doing the vast bulk of the work. So I want to pass it over to Vicki to provide a update on where we are with the signs.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
Vicki?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Vicki Touchstone, Refuge Planner for the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge Complex. Can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. We've been working for a while on deciding on a design for the sign for the Gordy Shields Bridge. And after several site visits and looking at the conditions at the entrances to the bridge, we determined that the best solution for the sign would be to put it on a standard signpost that could be placed at both the north and the south entrance to the bridge. And this solved the problem of trying to find a location that made the sign easy to read without blocking through bike traffic in the area. And it will also reduce the potential for vandalism. And if it is damaged, the sign can be easily replaced and inexpensively replaced because of the standardization of the sign. And it does incorporate the theme of the Bayshore Bikeway, which was so important to Gordy. So this is the sign as it's currently proposed. The only change, we had a final decision. We've been working closely with Sandag staff. They've been very helpful. The Gordy Shields Bridge title there will actually be capitalized letters and then lowercase. So we have that slight change in the design. With that, with working with the Sandag staff, I think we've come to a final decision and we're working on the final production details. Sandag will fabricate the sign and we hopefully will have it done in time for installation in December. So, and do you want me to talk a little bit about the railroad sign as well?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so we've been working on a replacement sign for interpretation of the Coronado Belt Line Railroad. The sign was originally installed by the city of San Diego as a condition of the segment of the Bayshore Bikeway that goes from about Main Street to 13th Street. Unfortunately, that sign was vandalized quite quickly after it was installed. So we're currently working with Artifact Design, who also helped us with the Gordy Shields sign. And we have finally found the old language. It took quite a bit of work, and we thank Myra Herman at the city of San Diego, who finally was able to locate that. And we're going to get some additional information from the Coastal Commission because that was a requirement of their permit. We just want to make sure that the sign that we're replacing the old sign with meets all the requirements of the conditions of approval. But we're going to go out in the field in the next couple of weeks, look at the existing sign post, which is made up of the historic railroad ties. And we're hoping that we might be able to continue to use that and put the new sign in that location. But we'll keep you posted on it. We're excited to do that. And we will be coordinating with Sandag staff again on that because they're working on an additional interpretive sign for the railroad that'll be located in another location. So thanks.
Very good, Vicki. Thank you for all your work on that. I know you've guys have put in a lot of time and effort. Any since you've got the floor right now, is there any update on the possibilities of that section from 13th Street over to Main Street to making some modifications on the fencing?
Andy probably talk about that. We're working.
Yes. Well, Vicki has been far more productive on working on the signs than I have been in addressing the fence relocation. We've also done a site visit and are going to be coordinating with the Coastal Commission staff, but one other alternative that we're also considering, in addition to one alternative of relocating the fence entirely downslope, would be whether there would be a benefit to just reducing the actual height of the fence from about 7.5 feet to something lower. That way you would be able to see over the fence. It would create that more open feeling along that southern edge. But those are things that we're still evaluating.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is are there any questions of Vicki or Andy?
And Chair, I don't see any public comment on this item.
Okay. Then let's go on to I8C, which is wayfinding signage. And I believe Sydney's going to give us that report, Natalie.
Hi, yeah, my name is Signe Wirtz. I'm a public outreach intern at Sandag, and I'm going to give a brief update on the wayfinding signs we're working on thanks to the County of San Diego and the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program grant that we received.
And I'm Natalie Cushman. I'm a public outreach officer at Sandag. We're working on this project together. So I'll let Signe take it away.
Thank you. So we are doing additional replacement and updated Go by Bike wayfinding signage pointing to various destinations, including the Sweetwater River and Swiss Park, Bikeway Village, other key destinations like that. Next slide. So we have created a map of our existing signage inventory to keep track of what we have and what needs to be added or replaced. And to the right, you see an example of a picture that we took when we went on a site visit to figure this out with more information about that. Next slide. We're also developing some You Are Here map signs that will each include a map of the Bayshore Bikeway with an icon that shows where that sign is located on the bikeway. These are going to be about 10 to 15 signs to show the context of the bikeway and improve wayfinding around the bikeway. In context to potential destinations that people can reach using the bikeway. Next slide. And then these are the approximate locations where the You Are Here signs will be located and the destinations along the bikeway that'll be near those signs. I'm happy to take any questions and suggestions if you have any at this time. This is just a quick update on the project we're working on thanks to the County of San Diego and the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program grant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Signe. And Natalie, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Hi, this is Jill Galvez.
Yeah,
Quick
Jill,
question.
go ahead.
Thank you. So interesting color choices. They're very pretty. Are those fade resistant signs or I notice that sometimes in color choices for public signs, different colors fade a little bit more quickly than others. And how long are those signs supposed to remain looking as beautiful as they do on this presentation? Thanks.
Okay, so we haven't designed yet the You Are Here signs. We've been working through the conceptual phase. So this is just an idea of what it would look like. We would intend to use the Go by Bike brand colors, which you can see today on the existing wayfinding signs. If we're able to go back to, I think, the second slide of the presentation, those are the colors we use on our signs out in the field today. It's purple, green, white, blue, and they're fabricated with a graffiti overlay and a reflective coating. So they fare very well in the sun and out in the field. So you can see those with our existing signs, and we would intend to use a similar color scheme on the You Are Here map signs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Comments?
Supervisor Cox, one question. Have
Yeah,
we
go ahead,
looked at I like this You Are Here map, but you know, the average cyclist now is riding around with their iPhone on their bike, and they pretty much know where they are at all times. I'm wondering, have we looked at maybe incorporating digital location devices or some way to, as we move forward, let's finish the bikeway. I understand that, but I would like to see us get to the point where, you know, a signage is kind of outdated. I mean, we really should be looking at digital marketing as we're going around the bike path. And I know that'll probably be another fund we'll have to get. So I see Supervisor Cox go, oh my God, there's more money being burned right now. But I would really like to see us move forward with something that is a little bit more 20th century, if you know what I mean. So that's my opinion at this point.
Mark, you bring up a good point. I know at our some of our county parks we have, and I'm not very computer literate, but I think QR codes or stations that are set up, and you know, particularly as people are riding, maybe there's some viewpoints or something like that we can identify where we could put something like that, where if you're down by the salt works, you could hear a recorded message in regards to the history of the salt works or the south end of the wildlife refuge, various points along the way. I mean, there's a lot of history involved with what's gone on around the San Diego Bay and Bayshore Bikeway. So maybe that's something we can put on our list of future projects.
Things to do. I got it. Yes, agreed.
Any other comments or questions? If you do, I can't see everybody, so if you, just want to speak right up, you can do that. There we go.
And
Okay.
Chair, I don't see any public comment on this item.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is updates on projects related to the Bayshore Bikeway. I wanted to share with you after the last meeting, we had the pleasure of having Bill Walton with us. He is probably one of the most regular riders along the Bayshore Bikeway, and it's great to see him out there and just enjoying himself and having a good time. There was an issue that was raised by Bill about the maintenance of the bikeway and the upkeep and trimming back some of the vegetation. And I know that we recently sent out a email to all of the city managers around San Diego Bay or staff people that have responsibility for the Bayshore Bikeway to ask for their cooperation in maintaining the bikeway and cutting back on the vegetation and just trying to make sure that it's a clean surface. And so we hope that that'll get a response from each of the jurisdictions where the bike path goes through. And then we also gave direction to send a letter in support of the Chula Vista Bayshore Bikeway East Street to Lagoon Drive segment. They were applying for a grant from the Active Transportation Program Cycle 5 funding, and it looks like maybe we're going to have a brief report on that.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Cox and members of the working group. This is Frank Rivera with the City of Chula Vista. Next slide. I don't know if there's a map on the present. There you go. We submitted last month to Caltrans the Bayshore Bikeway gap that we have. It's segment 6 from East Street south to H Street is the gap. And we only submitted for a portion of that gap. This is segment 6, the north end of it, from East Street to Lagoon Drive. And Lagoon Drive changes to F Street once you go east of Bay Boulevard. And the reason we submitted only East Street to Lagoon Drive, which is a quarter mile, is because we're also currently working with Collins Aerostructures, which is the Roar BF Goodrich campus. And they're in the process of consolidating their campus. And it looks like eventually they will not have any buildings under their control from the Coronado Branch Line Railroad east to Bay Boulevard. And I've made several presentations to the working group over the years about the option for us to continue from Lagoon Drive to H Street via the railroad corridor or along the west side of Bay Boulevard. So we felt that with the grant application, we would be able to do East Street to Lagoon. That would not change anything. And in the future, we could follow the curvilinear alignment east over towards F Street. And that was the other grant that we submitted. So in this concept that we have, there would be a railroad bridge spanning the railroad. There's a drainage facility up at the north end. It'd be a straight bike path similar to what we have south of J Street with the railroad tracks to the west of it, separated by a chain link fence. And we would have at the south end of this project or this phase, we would have a bike signal mid-block at the Lagoon Drive Street intersection. And that goes by that park right there at the corner of Bay Boulevard and Lagoon Drive. So we're hopeful that the grant, we're asking for about $3 million, and that we would find out in March or April of next year that we're successful. If we are successful, we would be going to the city council to help establish a capital improvement project, which we then could begin as soon as we're able to, sometime after July 1st, and get this project moving as quickly as possible. And we did ask for the construction funds, everything through construction. Next slide, I think, is just the other grant application. This is F Street, and now it's kind of rotated. North is up. but at the very west end is a roundabout, and that's the Bay Boulevard Lagoon Drive F Street roundabout with I-5 near just to the east of the roundabout. And it does show the old railroad bridge to the north of F Street. That is part of the F Street Promenade study that our city council approved in 2018. The grant application is including the roundabout at Bay Boulevard, then east till we get to Broadway. And Broadway's the sort of like that tan intersection almost all the way over to the far right-hand side. And last summer, we had MTS remove the old railroad, the railroad ties, and the ballast down the center line of F Street. They repaved all that. We are currently almost wrapping up the design phase with San Diego Gas and Electric to underground the electrical utility lines from just west of Bay Boulevard all the way through to Broadway. SDG&E will be eliminating the overhead electrical beginning next year. And we already have 30% design plans for the improvements you see there, which would consist of a multi-purpose path that has a sidewalk and a bike path or a bike lane off the street on each side of where the rows of trees are. So it would be a class 1 facility, but we also would have a pedestrian area kind of designated maybe with a different texture or concrete. And that ultimately is the vision to take it all the way to 3rd Avenue. But right now we're just looking at the first phase, which is Bay Boulevard to Broadway. So again, if we find out that we receive this grant, we would be able to begin working on this towards the middle or end of next calendar year. And these two projects would very easily link up to each other and really create a nice big entry or gateway statement to our bayfront and the RV park, which is opening up early next year, and the Port District's bike path that they have from E Street I-5 going over towards where the Boat Works yard is at the foot of G Street. So that completes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Frank, that section that you were just talking about that the Port District is doing, that's under construction right now, is it not?
That's correct. And it's probably about 3 to maybe, no, I'm gonna say maybe about 5 to 6 months away from opening is what I understand.
Yeah, great, good report.
Well,
We wish you luck, and you'll find out in April or May whether you got the grant. Is that, or March or April rather?
That's correct.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Any questions for Frank?
Yes, hi, this is Jill again. Thank you, Frank.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Cox. Thank you, Frank. Great report. Could you go back to the first slide with the railroad track one? There you go. Could you talk more about the signal that will be on Lagoon Drive?
Yes.
Safety is really important, and I'm really happy to hear about that.
Yeah, since the bike path intersects, it's kind of a T intersection at this particular point in time, because once you go south of Lagoon Drive or off to the right of the exhibit there, that's not yet part of the bike path. And so the bicyclists that are crossing over the center of the street are going to be using the bike lane that's on the south side of Lagoon Drive to head east. And same with pedestrians that maybe work at the Collins Aerostructures facility there, that they want to cross the street there. So what we want to do is, this is sort of a, it's a bicycle signal, but there is different type of technology out there, and we haven't figured out the details yet. But when you have a signal like this, typically it might be like a hawk signal, which has like 2 indications, yellows that alternate at the top, left and right, and then a red one underneath. Or this could be one with the bike symbol as part of the lenses to it. As the designs standards are getting updated more and more for bicycling, we just intend to use the best type of traffic signal that's available. and it could be activated either by presence detection or radar detection as the bicyclists or pedestrians are approaching, plus also have some sort of a push button arrangement since it is a T intersection. So we put that out there because we do recognize that there's a need to advise the motorists of the bicyclists and people that are using that path that they could be crossing at that mid-block location. And you can see the striping on the lower right inset that we really want to embellish that point, that it's a conflict point between the users of the bike path and the roadway.
Thank you very much. And I completely agree with getting the most modern and up-to-date technology possible, as well as making it as visible and noticeable as possible. So thank you. That's critical.
You're welcome. And it's, you know, one of the things we have to work around is that there's existing electrical overhead lines that are not likely to be undergrounded because they're transmission lines. And so we have to be careful about the placement of the traffic signal standards, the street lights on top. You see the little circular symbol is a street light because it's technically also a crosswalk. So the illumination of that point is very important to us. And so that's just one key component that we have to coordinate very closely with San Diego Gas and Electric on the design.
Excellent work. Thank you very much. That concludes my questions. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome, Council Member.
Hey, any other questions of Frank? All right, I don't see any. Do we have any public comments on this item, Linda?
No public comments, Chair.
Let me ask my colleagues on the working group, this is an opportunity, if you have any issues you want to bring up for consideration at our next meeting in December, which I think Linda's going to be working on on when that date might be, or concerns that you have, now's the time to bring them up. Any issues or concerns?
Actually, this is Jill again. I have, thank you. So I think you're retiring, Supervisor Cox. Is that correct? Will you be retiring?
I am turned out on January 4th of 2021, which is 86 days, 21 hours, 15 minutes, and 51 seconds from now. But believe me, as Linda will tell you, we're working fast and furious to, close out a few of these projects that have been hanging fire for a while.
Thank you. I think it would be appropriate maybe for the next meeting agenda to discuss leadership and chairmanship of this committee.
I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you. And planning your party, your virtual party.
Yeah.
Appreciation. Thank you.
I don't know how far that's going to go, but okay. Any other comments? If not, we will stand adjourned to our next regular meeting, or actually our meetings are never regular, but our next meeting, which we anticipate will be in December. And at that time, we'll talk about the subcommittee for Choyas Creek. We will have some more updates on some of the signage issues, and obviously updates on the projects that are currently under development. So we thank you. We got done in an hour and 45 minutes. So the next 15 minutes, do some breathing exercise, do some yoga, do whatever you want to do.
Ride your bike.
There you go.
Hey, Andy.
Have a beer. Only for 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. Bye.